In the 3 years I've been married to Jack, he's taken care of everything about me, inside and out. I used to think this was a sign of his love, until my sister returned home from her divorce. Looking at myself in the mirror, I realized I was just a stand-in. Holding the medical report, I decided to spend my remaining days as a thorn in Jack's heart, making him regret for the rest of his life. 3 years of marriage and no pregnancy, I was anxious, but I never expected a routine checkup would diagnose me with uterine cancer. Stage 2. When I was diagnosed, my colleagues at the hospital comforted me. Don't worry too much. Jack is an expert in this field, he'll figure it out. Should I call Jack to come over and tell him the situation? Call Jack over. He can't even take care of himself. He just rushed out in a hurry without a word. I shook my head at the report and asked them to close my file for now. I wanted to go home and tell him myself. Picking up my phone, I suddenly thought of my parents, who went abroad with my sister 3 years ago. Even though they'd always been cold towards me, standing in the face of illness, I strangely wanted to hear their voices. But when I opened my phone, I saw my sister's Twitter, which I hadn't logged out of yet. It was a picture of her and Jack, with a caption saying they were returning home today. My heart skipped a beat. My sister was coming back today. Jack was picking her up, and I had no idea. My mind raced and I hastily called Jack, but he hung up. Calling again, his phone was off. I was zoning out, absent-mindedly leaving the hospital early. Hadn't Jack only met my sister once? Why would he skip work to pick her up? I sat around for hours with the report, waiting in vain for a call from Jack or my sister. I obsessively refreshed Jack and my sister's Twitter feeds. I found out my sister's previously blank Twitter now had visible posts. Those familiar clothes, the same makeup style. I rushed to the restroom to look in the mirror. I grabbed the skincare products from the sink and threw them at the mirror. So, Jack's 3 years of meticulous care, handling everything, wasn't for me. He just wanted to turn me into a version of my sister, so he could see her whenever he looked at me. My wished-for happy marriage turned out to be a stand-in relationship. The person wasn't just anyone, but my sister, whom I had always looked up to since we were kids. I was furious. Why aren't you asleep yet? When Jack opened the door, I saw a smile on his lips I had never seen before. It was the first time in 3 years of marriage that I saw such a bright smile on his face. Not for me. That smile was for my sister. I'm waiting for you. I approached him holding the report. I'm still young. I don't want to die. My husband is a cancer specialist. All my hopes are pinned on him. Stage 2 uterine cancer. As a nurse, I know very well that if I delay any longer, the best treatment would be to remove the uterus, which means I might never be able to have children. Jack walked over, habitually handing me his suit jacket. That's when I saw the lipstick stain on it. Didn't I tell you to eat by yourself first? I drank a bit too much. Need to hit the bathroom first. Jack hugged me briefly before turning towards the bathroom. The hospital report slipped from my hand and fell to the floor. Jack didn't even glance back. Just like how I stood there, forced to mimic everything about my sister, waiting for him to turn back. I lay back in bed, and when he came out of the shower, he held me. What were you trying to say earlier? Jack whispered in my ear, his tone still cold and indifferent, like he was always above it all, proud and aloof. I opened my mouth. Did my sister come back? Jack's hand stiffened, and he let go of me. The warmth I felt on my back vanished instantly. Zoe, I don't want you to ask about this again. Can we just stay like this? Stay like this? Like what? A threesome? I pressed my aching abdomen and realized all my pleas had been mistakes. His bluntness was more hurtful than his silence. He took my love for granted, expecting it without reciprocation. So, I've become a doll in Jack's eyes, obedient and controlled. After all, only dolls offer no resistance. Sleep, I said faintly, clearly hearing Jack exhale behind me. In the morning, I didn't prepare his clothes or make breakfast as usual, nor did I follow the 3-year habit of makeup and perfume. I put on the jeans and shirt buried deep in my closet, and went to another hospital for a full checkup. Did you not bring any family with you? The doctor asked, glancing at me. I shook my head. It's fine. I know I have cancer. Just tell me directly. The doctor looked troubled, but finally said at my insistence, the problem isn't just the cancer, you're also pregnant. I studied the location of the tumor. It's not good. If you have surgery now, you might not be able to have children in the future. Leaving the hospital with the diagnosis, my legs felt weak. I couldn't believe that after 3 years of trying, I got pregnant now. Touching my belly, my mind was in turmoil. After a long while, I picked up the phone and made a call. When my mother answered, my heart raced. Mom, what is it? Her cold attitude was as usual. Back then, my mom thought I was closer to my grandma and didn't cling to her. I wasn't as smart or talented as my sister, who excelled in ballet from a young age, so she resolutely left me in the countryside, taking my sister to the city for dance lessons. In high school and college, my parents again pushed me to stay in dorms. After I graduated college, I rarely went home except for Chinese New Year. I couldn't stand the cold indifference. Everything at home was according to my sister's preferences. We had to go to bed by 9 p.m. and we weren't allowed to talk during meals. My mom never scolded me. She just stared at me coldly until I admitted my mistakes. Mom, if I did something that could ruin my life, what should I do? My mom responded calmly. Did you make a mistake? You're an adult. Adults should take responsibility for their decisions. On the other end, I heard my dad asking, who is it? My mom replied, no one. Keep watching TV. Alright, if there's nothing else, I'm hanging up now. I listened to the dial tone as a chilling coldness enveloped me. In this winter, the only warmth I could feel was from my lower abdomen. I smiled, eyes red. Baby, I won't abandon you. You're the last bit of warmth I have in this world. Growing up, I lived in a cold family and longed for warmth. So when Jack promised to give me a home, I married him without hesitation. Back at work, I pushed open Dr. Jack's office door. Unexpectedly, I saw Jack holding my sister's hand. Her pretty face looked pale, but her makeup was immaculate. She smiled at me. Zoe, you're here. I just stared at them silently. Only then did Jack awkwardly let go of my sister's hand. Your sister wasn't feeling well. I was just taking care of her. Don't overthink it. Sure. My stomach suddenly hurt as I listened to the footsteps outside. I nodded slightly, not wanting to become the subject of gossip. My sister Lisa was beautiful and gentle, but I knew how jealous she was. Whenever I was home, she insisted my mom cook only greens and tofu, because she was dieting. And she would drag my mom to go shopping for dance shoes, leaving me to register for school alone. Zoe, you haven't changed a bit after all these years. No, wait. My sister walked up to me, affectionately clutching my arm. You've become prettier. All my beauty was Jack's doing, molding me to his tastes. That thought struck like a knife, making my heart ache. Instinctively, I stepped back, causing my sister to fall. Lisa, I tried to help her up, but Jack pushed me aside. Watching him protect my sister made my stomach hurt even more. I couldn't bear to see Jack like this anymore. So I ran to the restroom and found I was bleeding. Without thinking, I called Jack, trembling and clutching my stomach. Jack, my stomach hurts. It's okay, go look after Zoe. Hearing my sister's words on the other end made me laugh bitterly. Was my husband's care for me now subject to her approval? I got dressed and called my best friend. Within 10 minutes, my bestie Lily was waiting outside the hospital. After hearing what had happened, Lily was furious. No way, Zoe. You can't have this baby under these circumstances. You know Jack isn't into you anymore. Why have his baby? Don't you value your own life? But Lily, this baby might be the only one who loves me. Plus, the doctor said my condition is risky, and the chances of success are low. Even if I give him up, I might not survive. I touched my belly, holding back my tears. I love you. Lily hugged me, bursting into tears. Zoe, please don't do this. Abort the baby and get treatment. There are plenty of other guys out there. I want to grow old with you as my bestie. I don't want anything to happen to you. For the sake of our promise to go clubbing 30 years from now. I looked at my pale face and dark lips in the rearview mirror and reluctantly nodded. Why should I risk my life over this? Lily checked for options and took me to the best gynecologist. The doctor, after hearing my situation, confirmed it was risky and needed a discussion. I handed my records to the doctor and waited with Lily in the hall. Lily held my hand, trembling more than I was. I teased her. Are you that scared of losing me? Don't worry. You said you like my pasta best. I'll live long enough to cook pasta for your toothless self. Zoe. I turned and saw my sister standing there. Why was she here? Did Jack send her? Jack left his phone with me. I heard his friends call and found out you were here. Her gaze roamed over me, voice still gentle. Are you okay? Should I get Jack here? Stop pretending to care. If you really wanted Jack here, you'd call him. Why act innocent now? Lily wanted to rush at her, but I held her back. But I underestimated my strength. Lily, a boxing champ, overpowered me, jumped up, and slapped Lisa twice, pointing angrily at her. If you cared for Zoe, you wouldn't have taken our parents to your shows, leaving Zoe alone on New Year's. When Zoe had appendicitis, you were at the hospital too, but took care of your friend instead. Every year, I celebrate Zoe's birthday. Has anyone from your family ever called or texted her? Did you know she calls out for you when she's sick? Zoe learned about your overseas trip from a friend, not from you. Lisa, if you like playing the victim, fine, but involving your sister's husband, do you have no shame? Watching Lily cry and scold for me, I felt a strange peace, because I saw clearly that Lisa felt no guilt. All her life, Lisa pretended to like me in public, but mocked me in private. As my older sister, she once told me to my face that she hated me. She didn't want our parents to have another child, but they had me anyway. Later, Lisa was happy because I was also a girl. Otherwise, she wouldn't have had all our parents' attention. Towards me, she was always cold and hateful. I walked up and hugged Lily tightly, who was both excited and upset. I whispered, "Let's leave." After I left with Lily, my phone kept ringing. Some were from colleagues, others were from Jack. I hung up, turned off my phone, and stared blankly for a second before laughing. "What are you laughing at, silly?" Lily asked while blowing her nose. For the first time, I realized that when I called Jack too much and got ignored, turning off the phone was actually a good solution for him. I used to think Jack did it because he was busy. When he came home and gave any explanation, I would accept it. Now that I'm the one turning off the phone, I understand. Turning off the phone means you have nothing to say to the person. Even one more word feels like a waste of time. Silly, silly, silly. I shouldn't have let you marry him. It's all my mother's fault. If she hadn't lent the old house to relatives, Jack wouldn't have taken you away. Lily cried even louder. I had only been dating him for 3 months when Jack found out I was moving and suddenly proposed. No ring, no flowers. Just a way to deal with my disappointment about the move. After all, my parents sold the house and gave me $10,000 to rent a place. Jack's proposal made me feel like I could have a new home. I shook my head and firmly said, "Actually, I just wanted a home too much." Now that I think about it, I loved Jack so blindly. I thought if I pleased him, I could always have a home with him. But now, apart from the baby in my belly, everything Jack gave me had traces of Lisa. And traces always disappear. I decided to disappear from Jack's world with my child. When I went back with Lily to get my things, I gathered my bank cards, documents, and my clean jeans and shirts. I didn't take anything Jack bought me. For the divorce, I contacted an old schoolmate who's a lawyer to send Jack the papers. With Lily's help, I quickly found a place to rent. 3 days later, I turned my phone back on. First thing I saw were Jack's messages. "Where are you? I know what's going on with you. Come back. We can't keep the baby. The best thing is to have an abortion and get a D&C, then get proper treatment." He's a doctor, I'm a nurse. We both know the procedure clearly. If I drag this on, I might not even survive to see the baby grow. But I'm doomed either way. Mid to late stages plus pregnancy means I won't last long even if I abort. Since that's the case, I'd rather grab this one chance to be a mother, not for anyone else, just because I want to. I've also arranged a future for my child. Lily has a special condition. She was diagnosed with a uterine abnormality from a young age and decided long ago not to marry or have kids. So Lily and I agreed she'd help raise the baby with me. When I'm gone, she'll take the child to another city and start a new life. Lily loves the child and loves me. Even if I don't make it, Lily will take my place and be there for the child. I kept scrolling through Jack's messages until I saw the latest one. "Zoe, your sister jumped off a building." That message was already hours old. I checked the news, but didn't see any reports about a local woman jumping to her death. Just then, Jack called again, and I answered. "Zoe, where are you? Did you get the divorce papers?" I asked. There was a long silence before Jack spoke hoarsely. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were sick. My illness has nothing to do with our divorce. We're divorcing because the relationship is broken." I no longer hoped to find love from Jack. Who would truly love a toy? Even a toy that worked hard and never complained for 3 years is still just a toy. Divorce is the most dignified decision I can make now. Continuing to argue or insult would only harm my health. Let's put our situation on hold for now. Please come back, okay? Your sister jumped off a building. Aren't you worried? That day, Lily hit your sister in the hospital, and it was recorded and posted online. Your sister was already in a bad mood. Now that she knows you're sick, she felt guilty and jumped off the building. "Zoe, please come back. Let me take care of you. I promise I won't let anything bad happen to you." Guilt and remorse filled Jack's tone, but I just laughed. "Jack, do you even hear what you're saying?" There was silence on the other end. My question had stumped him. As I browsed baby products online, I explained. "You think we can put our stuff on hold? Then you say Lisa's having a tough time, and only after that do you mention taking care of me. In fact, your concern is because Lisa jumped and you're worried about her, right? She must have told you she wants me back, right? You both want me back, so your consciences don't hurt, and no one blames you. Jack, if you really wanted to find me, wouldn't you be able to?" Without the lens of love, Jack's fake concern seemed ridiculous. If I were kind enough to go back and let Jack take care of me for their peace of mind, God would probably make way for me. I've been a fool for love, but I don't want to be a saint. I hung up the phone, and the next day, Lily's parents called me, saying Lily had been arrested. I must have owed Lisa big time in my past life, for her to have such a hold over me all my life. I went to the hospital to find Lisa, who had called the police. Lisa was crying, saying she just wanted to see me, her sister. That's why she reported Lily. Lisa apologized to me tearfully in the hospital room. She insisted on opening. Release her first. I watched Lisa's performance with a numb expression. Lisa was quick about it, immediately calling her friend to withdraw the case. Jack was on the side, looking at me with worry. Many of my colleagues were gathered outside the hospital room, and I suddenly understood why Lisa did it. Jack was the subject of much gossip at the hospital. If Lisa could help him with that, Jack would think even more highly of Lisa. I divorced Jack simply because I realized we weren't compatible. When I said that, I saw a smug smile in Lisa's eyes. But I don't appreciate you sending my friends to the police to force me to show up, sis. Can you please not meddle in our marital affairs anymore? Even if you meant well, I'm really going to say thanks, but no thanks. Lisa's smile disappeared. Jack walked over and hugged me tightly. Honey, I was wrong. It was the first time I heard him call me honey. Seeing the red veins in his eyes, I couldn't help but laugh coldly inside. I didn't move, noticing the resentment in Lisa's eyes. She was jealous that Jack was hugging his legal wife. I stayed silent. It's not like I can't wait out the 2-month waiting period for the divorce. I can handle it. I made Jack go back to the office and sign the divorce papers, promising I wouldn't force him to give up custody if he didn't compel me to abort the baby. Jack tried reasoning with me several times, but I treated him with cold indifference until he finally gave in and agreed. We returned home, but slept in separate rooms. I stopped cooking and ironing his clothes, but Jack, perhaps out of guilt, started being very considerate, doing everything himself. One day, Jack made beef brisket with potatoes, called me down for dinner, and added some to my bowl. You used to make this all the time. Try it and see if I did a good job. The beef brisket in the bowl gleamed with curry. It didn't look like something someone making it for the first time would produce. I'm allergic to beef, I said flatly while eating some stir-fried vegetables. Jack froze. I continued eating. Lisa likes beef. Since we got married, you said you only eat beef, so I made it. But Jack never noticed that I never ate even a bite of beef. I'll make you something else. Watching him rush to the kitchen in a fluster, I put down my chopsticks and shook my head. No need. My stomach hurts. I can't eat. Jack stopped at the kitchen door, head hung low, showing vulnerability for the first time in front of me. Looking defeated, like a big, sad dog, I returned to my room, and that night, I started feeling abdominal pain. I noticed some bleeding and frequent urination. Jack heard the noise and rushed in, worried and fussing over me. At first, I resisted a bit, but eventually, I couldn't handle it on my own. After all, the baby in my belly was his. Why should it be an easy ride for him while I suffered? In just half a month, I lost 12 pounds. Jack lost 8 pounds. When his parents learned about my condition, they began calling him frequently, urging him to divorce me. Eating tasteless food, I could hear Jack's mom shouting over the phone. She's going to drag you down with her. If she doesn't abort and gets conservative treatment, she and the baby might both be lost. What will happen to us then? Jack looked in my direction, replying calmly, I'll handle my own business. He walked over and touched my bowl. Let me get you a fresh bowl of porridge. This one's cold. I can't eat. But looking at my now slightly protruding belly, I forced myself to eat half a bowl. But within half an hour, I was running to the bathroom, vomiting until I felt weak. Seeing clean freak Jack helping me clean up the bathroom, I sipped water and said, thank you. Jack's back stiffened, and he looked at me with a complex, dark expression. Zoe, we're husband and wife. No need to be so polite. But we're divorcing. Only 1 month left, I said, touching my belly and looking at him. Jack's veins bulged on his forehead as I turned upstairs. I clearly saw the regret and guilt on his face. He was starting to fear. He hoped using the child might soften my heart, but he also feared that me carrying the child could mean losing my life. The once invincible Jack was now afraid of hurting me, even if I'd been just a stand-in. I started taking cancer medication that wouldn't affect the baby. My colleagues at the hospital were concerned about me. Female colleagues would tell me, ever since Jack convinced me to come home, he hired a caregiver for Lisa. Except for the occasional check during rounds, he hadn't visited Lisa. The head nurse shook her head and told me, other doctors were starting to pursue Lisa. I smiled. Lisa had always been that way. So many people loved her. When Jack came to pick me up, others would tease us. He used to keep a stern face, never joking with the female nurses. But recently, he'd smile and thank them for taking care of me. He learned to buy milk tea for my close colleagues. The old director, seeing my gaunt appearance, patted Jack on the shoulder. Take good care of Zoe. If you're not sure about something, call me. I heard that and asked with a smile, is my condition getting worse? The old director shook his head in denial. I looked at Jack and politely asked, can I see my medical records and test results? I want to know my situation. Jack used to always tell me, no, it's not appropriate, it's not good. But now, as long as I stared at him for a while, he would silently do as I asked. I thought, maybe this is the privilege of someone with a short lifespan. I looked at the test results. They were not ideal. My uterus was originally thin, which is why I hadn't conceived all these years. Now the baby was adding to my burden, and the lesion had started to risk infection. Jack insisted on holding my hand as he helped me into the car. We sat there for about half an hour and didn't even leave the parking lot. When he finally turned to call my name, I saw his eyes were red. Zoe, I really know I was wrong. I'm begging you to give me another chance. Let's abort the baby and do the surgery, okay? I calmly shook my head, holding my belly, and said, Jack, whether or not this baby lives, I'm going to die. I'd rather let him live. Jack slumped over the steering wheel, not moving. That day, he didn't take me home until the sky was filled with the glow of sunset. The head nurse called to say my parents were visiting Lisa, and they got into a fight. I happened to be near the hospital. I didn't plan on going to see the commotion, but I started having a bit of bleeding again last night. Jack insisted on sleeping on the floor with a blanket, keeping watch over me. We agreed to go back to the hospital in the afternoon for another checkup. When I arrived at the hospital, I thought Lisa must have already calmed my parents down. After all, Lisa was always good at talking and had a great relationship with our parents. Even if they fought, it would end in a happy reunion. But to my surprise, they were still fighting. As I walked by Lisa's room with the head nurse, I heard my mom yelling inside, "You're getting divorced. How do we stay abroad now? You never considered your father and me. We worked so hard to bring you from the countryside, and now you repay us like this. We might as well have taken Zoe. At least she wouldn't end up getting divorced like you." I noticed the head nurse looked a bit embarrassed and shrugged it off. "It's okay. This might be the first time my parents have ever praised me," I said with a smile. Although I was still going to get divorced, Lisa was also on edge. "You don't care about me at all. All you want is for me to get awards and money. If I hadn't escaped back to the country, Tom would have beaten me to death." I vaguely remembered the first time I met Lisa. She was smiling confidently, but there did seem to be bruises on her wrists. So, her marriage abroad wasn't happy. "I'm not going back. I will definitely divorce him. I want to stay here and start over," Lisa said. Before she could finish, there was the sound of a slap. My dad yelled at Lisa, "You promised us we could retire abroad. Is this how you repay your parents? Don't forget, we gave you the money from selling the house. So what? You willingly invested in Tom. If you want to stay abroad and look at the moon, figure it out yourself. Do you really love me? No, you don't. Just because I'm not a son. When I broke my bone as a child, you couldn't even bother to take me to the doctor. You treated me well later only because my grades brought you honor. If I hadn't worked so hard, I would have ended up like Zoe, sent off to the countryside, out of your sight. I told you Zoe had cancer. Did you even make one phone call? You are the most selfish parents in the world. You don't deserve to be parents. I hate you. I won't live under your control anymore, and I definitely won't go back." When Lisa rushed out of the room, I saw 3 shocked faces. Lisa looked embarrassed. It was the first time she looked so defeated in front of me. My parents seemed awkward, just standing in the room staring at me. The moment my mom saw me, she quickly looked away. My dad looked at me, his lips moved, but I didn't hear anything. But I guessed he was calling me Zoe, a name even more distant than a colleague's. "Let's go," the head nurse said, pulling my hand to leave, her voice angry. "Don't be sad. Some people are just not meant to be good parents. You did well for yourself. That's all your work." The head nurse was worried my parents might entangle me, fearing they might beg me for money. After all, they gave all their money to Lisa. I walked a couple of steps when my hand was suddenly grabbed. Lisa held my hand tightly and furiously leaned close to me. "Zoe, don't you hate them?" Hate? As a teen, when I first got my period and nobody taught me, I hated it. When a pervert stalked me home, only to find our house had been sold, I hated it too. When I was sick and in the hospital alone, getting in for, with no one to sign the surgery papers, I also felt resentful. But now, I don't have much longer to live. Avoiding my parents is the biggest peace I've made. This is your issue. Don't pull me into it, I said, trying to pull my hand away. But Lisa held tight. The head nurse pried Lisa's hand open, saying impatiently, Zoe isn't well. Don't stress her out like this. Can't you see she has no strength right now? With her emotions collapsing, Lisa continued, she's not well. What about me? Do you think I'm okay? Knowing Zoe ignited my competitive side. She held onto me tightly, her eyes red, shaking me hard. Zoe, at least you had grandma cooking eggs for you. You didn't have to get up at 4 to practice dance, or do winter performances. You got to choose your favorite college, and weren't beaten to the point of miscarriage by your husband. When I miscarried and ran home, my parents just called Tom. They cared only about their investment, not my bleeding. How can you not hate them? You should hate them like I do for being unfit parents, for their coldness and heartlessness. Let go of me, I said coldly. Lisa was just crying, shaking me constantly and asking questions, as if she wanted an answer from me. Mom and Dad finally rushed out of the room, trying to get Lisa to shut up and stop embarrassing herself. While they were arguing, Jack rescued me. He appeared like a deity, pushing away all the entanglements and restrictions on me. Zoe, when you were sick, Jack was taking care of me, but nothing happened between us. I was really at my wit's end. Why can't you understand? I've been with Mom and Dad for so many years. Why can't you take care of them for once? Lisa cried, looking helpless and pitiful. I saw several men subconsciously glancing her way, but Jack pulled me, heading to his office. My parents suddenly caught up. Jack, is Zoe's condition really that bad? Why don't you help us with the paperwork and let us take care of her? Jack didn't stop walking until we reached the office, and he told me to go in first. I don't know what he said to my parents, but he came back alone. I noticed he had a handprint on his face, but didn't ask. After the checkup, Jack breathed a sigh of relief. The baby is developing well, and the cancer hasn't spread. So let's file for divorce tomorrow, I said, looking at Jack. He was stunned for a long time before speaking hoarsely. Really? You can't forgive me? I realized that when one knows they don't have much time left, they become very magnanimous and forgiving. It's not about forgiveness. I used to love you, but I really don't anymore. Now, I want to raise this child with Lily. You're still young and aren't burdened with children. You can remarry with someone like Jack. Great job, car, house. His mom could probably set up a matchmaking event the day after our divorce. Jack grabbed my hand, lowered his head, and suddenly rested it on my belly. In a low voice, almost like a whisper, he asked, do we really have to get divorced? I felt the wetness of tears on my dress. I patted Jack's head, slightly smiling. Perhaps he was falling in love with me after all. He lost the bet he made to win me back in 2 months. But a late-found deep affection is worthless. Even the right to care for me, I wouldn't give him anymore. Let's just divorce. It's already progressed to late-stage cancer. I don't have much time left. I want to live according to my wishes before I go, okay? After a long while, Jack finally agreed. My wife divorced me. I never thought she would actually have the guts to go through with it. Her name was Zoe, and she looked a lot like my first love. Later, I found out they were indeed sisters. One was a dancer in the clouds, the other a timid little rabbit. I watched Zoe become homeless, and a soft spot in my heart was touched. An idea flashed through my mind. If I were with her, it would feel comfortable. So I married her. I didn't mind that her parents didn't attend the wedding, or that she wasn't highly educated, and didn't share a common language with me. I just wanted to see the goddess through her. When the goddess came back to the country, I took care of her personally, knowing in my heart it was unfair to Zoe. But I thought she was so obedient, she should be able to tolerate everything about me. When I found out Zoe had cancer and she was adamant about getting a divorce, I realized that I was actually attracted to her when we got married, but I wasn't aware of it then. She said she wanted to live happily in her last moments. I suddenly realized I didn't even have the right to ask her to stay. After the divorce, when I looked at the kitchen, I thought of her. When I saw shirts, I thought of her. When I saw people laughing, I thought of her. When the goddess Lisa sent me her selfies, I was shocked to find that Zoe and Lisa didn't look alike at all. I was just fooling myself. I didn't need to look at anything. My mind was filled with thoughts of Zoe. I think I fell in love with gentle Zoe a long time ago. I wanted to make up for the deep love I missed. I started reviewing Zoe's medical reports every day, taking them to professors and specialists abroad. But it was too late. Zoe didn't want anything from me except medical help. I watched her start to bleed internally, and my heart ached. Seeing her unable to eat, I knelt beside her bed with a bowl of porridge, begging her to drink just one sip, but she shook her head indifferently. Seeing her hemorrhage during childbirth, and then barely clinging to life afterward, I cried out loud. I finally understood how cruel it was when Zoe loved me, and I didn't give her a second glance. Because now, I feel like I'm choking every day, loving her but unable to have her. I think this is karma from heaven. Lily, my best friend, is the one I have wronged the most. She took care of me without complaint for 3 years, but I couldn't keep my promise to be with her till her teeth fell out. I, Zoe, died in the autumn of my 31st year. The leaves were yellow and the sunset was too. My son is 3 years old and can call me mommy. I hope, in his future, he will be happy every day. My name is Ryan. I'm 7 now, and I will start elementary school in September. My real mom is Zoe, and I live with Aunt Lily. I asked Aunt Lily why my last name is different from my dad and mom's, but the same as hers. Aunt Lily said it's because Jack's family wasn't good enough for me to have their name. I'm lucky because I can share her last name. At kindergarten, kids tease me for not having parents, but that's not true. My dad is a big doctor. Whenever he wants to take me out, I hear him begging on the phone with Aunt Lily. Aunt Lily has a bad temper and often yells at my dad, but she's really good to me. She's a good person. I guess my dad must have done something bad before, which is why Aunt Lily doesn't like him. Every year, Dad takes me to visit Mom's grave. I look at her picture and ask him, is Mommy sleeping in there? Dad pats my head and says yes. Can Mommy see me? Dad says yes. I take out stickers I've saved from kindergarten and stick them around Mom's photo. Dad, will Mom be happy to see my stickers? Because I've been good, right? Dad's eyes suddenly turn red. He squats down and hugs me, saying, your mom was a really good person. She wouldn't love you because of how well behaved you are. She loved you unconditionally, and so does Dad.